All right, today we're looking at the DeWalt compound miter saw. Mine is actually an older model that came out years ago. This was one of the first DeWalt tools that I actually ever purchased. So this is the DW715 model. The new one, I believe, is a DWS715. It's a little bit lighter. There's a couple of tweaks to it as far as the positioning goes, but generally it's going to be a very similar tool to the one that I have. But I'm going to cut to the chase here. You all know how much I love DeWalt tools. I have them all over the place. Do not buy this. Do not buy this. I'll say it one more time. Don't buy this compound miter saw. We'll talk about why in just a minute. Well, if it was ever a secret that I like DeWalt tools, that is a secret no more. I do not own all of these tools simply because I like the color yellow. I actually don't love the color yellow. If that tells you anything about me owning all of these. I find the DeWalt product to be a fantastic product. And in most cases, the category these tools belong in, whether it be a drill or a chainsaw or a miter saw, some of the other categories, they really are best in class at the price point that they offer them at. However, there are a few that I would say steer clear of. And we're going to go over those in this series that I have called DeWalt Tools, which ones are best. So come with me on this journey and let's take a look and see which DeWalt tools you should go for and which ones you should stay away from. All right, so I already told you the conclusion before we even got into it, but like I said, I've owned this tool for years. This is actually one of my favorite DeWalt tools, but I had a choice to make years ago when I bought this, and I feel like I made the wrong decision. So I'm not saying don't buy this for reasons you might think. Quality is great. The precision on it is great. I have no issues making the correct cuts unless I measure wrong. However, I should have bought a sliding miter saw. So the way this one is set up, the position is fixed as to how far it can cut. You can still change it to a 45-degree angle. However, I can't pull this out and cut more than the amount of space that's here. This one's just shy of 8 inches. I believe it's like 7 3/4 inches, somewhere around there, that it can cut through. That presents a problem for me with a lot of the projects I do, where sometimes I'm looking to make a cut on 3/4 inch ply that might need to be 12 inches. So then I have to either spin up my table saw that's built into my workbench here, or go for my Kreg plunge saw, and you've seen the video on that potentially. If not, you can shoot over and take a look at that. I love my Kreg plunge saw. It's a guide saw, but it's so much easier to be able to just, if you've got a small cut to make, just do it right here on the compound miter saw, rather than get the Kreg plunge saw out, get the track out, do all your measurements, or again, have to spin up the table saw. So I made a mistake. I should have got the sliding compound miter saw. So with that said, I'm not telling you not to get the DeWalt saw. What I'm telling you is to just make sure that you get the sliding. It is going to be a couple $100 more. Certainly something for you to think about, but you won't regret it. One day you'll end up like me if you go with the fixed one and regret not getting the sliding. I've made this mistake so many times in my life where I'm out buying something and they have 3 or 4 different models. You know, you've got the lowest tier up to the highest tier. And I think to myself, I don't need all those features. Let me just go for the one in the middle or even the one at the bottom. And then voila, you regret it one day. That happened to me recently when I was buying my kegerator. They offered it 2, 3, or 4 taps. I said, I'll go with 2. Who needs 4 taps? Well, here I am a year later. Gosh, I wish I gotten the 4-tap one. So sure enough, I had to spend 150 extra bucks to go out and get the 4-tap. So again, just make the decision now. If you're looking to buy a new compound miter saw, certainly I would recommend DeWalt, but just make sure you go for the sliding one. It is worth the extra money. I promise you that. Now, that's one mistake that I've made in my life. I'm going to show you another one here in a second as we check this saw out. I promise you we take a look at another mistake. So we've talked about the saw, we've talked about the kegerator. Here's a 2x8 piece of rough sawn cedar. This is about a $40 board at Home Depot. I was making a new mailbox post for my mailbox, and there's some HOA requirements, so you have to follow a certain design. So I had to get this rough sawn cedar and this 2x8 board. And for some reason, I guess I decided I wanted to measure once and cut twice, and I cut it too short. So here's my extra board. But in any event, this saw that we have here, this miter saw, if we just look at the performance of it, you can make the 45-degree angled cut. So you'll see here that I brought this to a point per the design that I had to do here. And because this is a 2x8, if you remember measurements, dimensions with lumber, it's actually just shy of 8 inches. It's more like 7 3/4. So it just fits on this saw. So a 2x8 will fit, but anything bigger than a 2x8, you're not going to be able to cut through in one cut, and you'll end up having the little ridges at the edge as you try to line it up when you have to flip it around to the other side. So again, so many reasons why the sliding miter saw makes more sense than getting the fixed one like what I have. But we're going to go ahead and cut this down a little bit just so you can see how it all works. It's super smooth. It's super easy. One of the great things that I love about this is all of the different angles that you can cut. So I can bring this down to a 45 or something less if I want to and end up with one of these cuts. But you can also swing it around at the bottom here if you need to make an angled cut going this way on your board. So there's a lot of different angles available. That's the whole reason that folks get miter saws typically, is because they're cutting molding. But I have found that I use this for a lot of 2x4s for projects that I do. This is really my main saw that I use for almost everything, which is another reason why I wish I had done the sliding saw so that I could get that distance to go out farther. So we'll take a look at it now. I hope that was helpful to talk through the saw and see it in action, understand the mistake that I made. Hopefully you don't make the same mistake. Hopefully this was a good enough warning for you to understand it really makes more sense to go ahead and get that sliding miter saw. If you have any questions or comments, as always, feel free to leave them below. Would appreciate if you subscribe to the page, like the video. Your support is always appreciated.